It's getting recorded, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So our first question is to find the positive integer for the given solution for the given equation. F of xy is given and a value z. We need to return all the positive integer pairs x and y, where f of xy equals to z. So the function is always increasing, as you can see, f of xy and x plus 1 here, f of x plus 1 comma y, and the other case y plus 1. This is again increasing compared to the previous one. So it's a always increasing function, and the function interface is defined like this is an API interface custom function which would take two integers x comma y for any given this, and it would return depending on whatever kind of operations you perform in the function. For custom testing purposes, you are given an integer function ID and a target z as input, where function ID represents one function from a secret internal list on the examples, which you will know from the list. You may return you may return the solutions in any order. So your function ID is 1 and the z is equal to 5. So is the sum of these two elements. I mean, the function rule that is followed here is f of x comma y is x plus y. So if you look here, they are the sum of these two. And here it's again multiplication. F of x comma y is, this is the definition that is following for the function. And your function solution will be in the range this, and it is guaranteed that f of xy will fit in 32-bit signed integer, and function id will vary only from 1 to 9, and z is up to 100. Yeah, less than equal to 100. Yeah, any queries in this?
Well, no queries as such, but
Yeah.
when actually you look at the example one and the example two, when they say input as function underscore ID, which is given as 1 and 2. So 1 is for addition and 2 is for multiplication. That is what it states, right?
Yeah.
So it is very hard to come out because like this function ID is not relevant as such, correct? When we are actually
Yeah.
using that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm, from output, I like got this function. And since I mentioned this output, now from there we are getting the intuition. I think
Yeah,
We don't need the function actually.
function should be followed, right?
right.
Because they have told that by knowing somewhere they have told no.
They say that
You
the function ID is internal secretly something, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, on the examples we will know only from two functions from the list. Based on otherwise, how will we decide the definition of function? Seeing this output only, right? Their sum is 5, so f of x comma y would be x plus y. Or they will have some internally something they'll have, and then from there.
Yeah, that is what actually the function, the problem statement is. It's very hard to understand because functions behavior we don't know, because function ID, even though they are giving here, but when you are trying to
Mm,
implement, you cannot use this function ID, correct?
exactly, yeah.
Or else I would have said function ID, then it means x and y are to be added, correct? Or function ID
Yeah.
equals 2, then I will say it will be, they have to be multiplied. So that is not given. So
Multi.
therefore the whole problem becomes very tricky. Or else it would have been a very easy problem, right?
Yeah, if the definition is mentioned.
Yeah, it would have been a very simple problem. So therefore they have made this trick. So we just actually put in any value in the function parameters, and then whatever the value we
Mm,
get out, just understand whether it is relevant, and then only use those two parameters, which are the inputs. So, and then pass
input.
it to the output. So something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So it took a long time for me to understand. First, I thought I'm not going to look at anything else, none of the
Yeah.
solutions. I just went on
Mm.
looking at this, and then I got a bit confused. So, okay, this is not working, and then I had to look in one of the discussion session to get all these details.
Things clear, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
that's true.
clear for me. I don't know how. other people have done that, but if they have some other way, please share. That will be great help.
A lot of information is, is in the form of abstract. Like they haven't mentioned it explicitly, like what kind of signature the function will follow, the definition of the function. So
Right, right.
yeah. Mhm. If somebody wants to share something or approach anything.
Did somebody make use of that fact that that the function is strictly increasing?
I
Yeah,
saw.
go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead, go
That is very
ahead.
interesting, actually. But yeah, okay. That is important, right, Rishit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I use that.
Okay. Do you want to share, Manish?
It is, yeah, just a second, just a second.
Sure. Share.
Just a second. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Sorry, my PC was lagging a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I simply iterated using two while loops, tried for every possible value of x and y, and called this custom function. If the value returned by this custom function is z, like which we are expecting, then I stored the value of I and j in the answer. That's it. So the fact that we are using previous is, so basically, if at any point, uh, given that the function is constantly increasing, so the previous value which I used for my j for my value, uh, it the next
They're not audible, I think.
I think, did we lose him?
I think he's not audible. He's
Okay.
audible.
No, even his PC is not responding.
Yeah, it seems like.
Okay. So he was trying to say about this, how he has used this constantly increasing those two conditions.
value I'll be trying to. Hello,
Yeah, we lost you. Okay, go ahead.
Can you repeat from the
my
starting?
laptop is running. I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I haven't even said anything.
Yeah.
So let me just rename this. Put it to y. Put it x. 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 Y. Y. So I'm just calling this custom function on x and y,
Mm-hmm.
and if the values match the z, then I'm just storing the values in an array. I'm just pushing back, and so that's it. So if I take an example, let's assume that the function uh, returns x plus y. So if my value of I is 1, and z expecting is we are expecting z5, and j is, so if I try with j1, then I'll not get the answer. I'll try for 2, 3, and then 4. At 4, I'll get the answer. So my I will start from 2. And now since in the question is given that the answer is strictly increasing, that simply means that the new value of j for, so I'll just rename the variables again. So the new value of y for x equal to 2 will not exceed the previous value of y. So my answer will always be less. So if I'm able to find an answer, if I'm able to find a value of y for x equal to 2, then that value of y will strictly be strictly will be less than 4. So I simply try from 1, then I try to 3. I found the answer. Then I try for 4. But at 4, my value matches my previous value of y. Right. So I just break there. I do not go ahead. And then I push back these values, and then I start with 3, and simply so on.
Oh, so this is an optimization you have done. So actually, it's not going to take more time in these loops, right?
Yeah, but I mean, still it will be n square only. I'm assuming.
That's fine.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So the other use of this information I can think of is that for all the values of x and y above 100 are useless.
Right. Z is only 100, right?
Right. So we
fine.
cannot have an increasing function. I mean, I just thought of this. I also did the same thing, except the optimization part. So I think that is the catch.
Okay. Yeah. Good you brought this. Yeah.
Right. That's also.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I haven't shared it.
This is a Google question. I thought it couldn't be so simple.
It's a Google question. Okay.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
a bit of math.
Okay. So they have a different type of questions. So we need to be very careful with that. Okay.
And one discussion I was seeing, I'll show you. Yeah, see what they have is visible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what they have said, like if it is a symmetric function, then whether it's increasing or decreasing, it doesn't matter, right? F of a comma b will be equal to f of b comma a. So if you increase y, then corresponding to this x will increase. So if they are telling if your function is symmetric, we don't need to test any of the cases. Because because the inverse would be true. Same value you'll get f of y comma x, and if you increase x, then next time if you revert it, you'll have the same value. But they have taken example in a dominating variable. Let's say a function is defined such that x into y raised to the power 3. So y is dominating here because y is dominating because it has a higher power, and thus the value of this will increase as long as you increase the value of y. Yeah, the supply will increase more when y increases than when exactly. I mean, when you increase, y will increase more. Yeah, this value will increase more. I mean, if you increase x, it more than that y will increase, right? Because the power of y is bigger than that of x. Yeah, and second is like go ahead.
No.
But I didn't like by iterating our dominant variable in the inner loop. If that is greater than z.
So there are very different variations in this. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's still not a very straightforward solution.
Problem. Yeah. And I don't know why they have used this value. Oh, they are checking for z less than equal to 100 over 3 into depending. If the function is symmetric, then they have, I don't know why they have used this constant value.
But how do we determine the dominant variable?
Dominant value depends on the power, no? Why?
We have no idea of the function, right?
Yeah, they have not given any. You don't know the definition of the function. These are all assumptions only. No, the author is making, right? Depending on that only is forming. You are just
Yeah,
given a secret function ID. You have to just give the answer for that. You don't know what kind of definition that particular function is following.
But
That's why we
did
have
they
taken
not
three questions.
say that in the problem statement that only you are going to use two of those secret functions? Right? Because if you look at the problem statement at the very end, he talks about the
Yeah.
internal secret internal list on examples. You will know only two functions from the list. So I assume it will be only plus and multiplication.
but there are 9 function IDs, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
1 to 9. 1 to
so
9
but if
there.
you
Last.
look at the I, so maybe no, you just go up.
Here,
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So I thought it was maybe then I'm wrong,
Yeah,
So
so it
because
says that these are just 2 of those 9, I think.
oh okay. So
These are
then
From
what?
this we have to deduce.
Uh-huh. So what
So
Shashank was bringing was some different variation and a different flavor of that function.
Yeah, I think that's something
I
universal. Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't think we can use any that dominant variable information while writing the code.
don't know how they use it.
Okay, this is a good one. We need to
And
again go
the
through that. Yeah.
on the top of it, why they are using this 13,7 on what basis?
Hmm. No, I think he's showing some examples, right?
Might be
Just if function is symmetric like this, then
symmetric.
so
I
maybe
thought some relevance. Okay.
there are some things actually to just think or maybe project in an interview and talk to the interviewer and explain him your
It's more of an
justification. Yeah.
interactive problem. Yeah. Yeah, but that's not Google actually. I don't know.
Hmm.
But a lot of information is hidden in this.
Mhm. Oh, so it's becoming more interesting now. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gradually, we need to do more research on this. Like,
Yep. So how did you implement Shashank?
yeah, I was just going through this only. I
Okay.
mean, this function only. But again, it's first I thought that from output the function signature is being derived. Like seeing this output, since 4 plus 1 is 5, so the function f of x comma y equal to x plus 1. But this won't be given in the interview, right? This output.
Maybe these are the questions we need to ask.
Because otherwise, how will we guess what would be the definition?
Yeah, because so I think we will have to run through some examples, right? So maybe talk with the interviewer and say, okay, if I do this as an input, so are you expecting something like this? Or maybe he will drive us. That is what I
Yeah.
am, assuming. Or else it's going to be very hard. If you just look at the problem statement and then implement something, I don't think so it's going to be anything I can at least do.
Because a lot of possibilities can be, somebody might, like the previous, they were thinking regarding higher powers, right? X into y raised to the power 3.
Mhm.
Somebody might think of square root, somebody will think of division, something like that. So
I think it's we have an API and the response of their API, and we have to figure out the inputs. And that API is a black box.
Right.
yeah, that's the black box secretly. Yeah.
We just have to iterate over the entire range. Yeah.
And
If we are able to figure out the input range, then it helps.
things are sorted out. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we can go to next. It's good.
Okay.
Check. So this is the exam room. Exam room is given. There are n suites which are ranging from 0 to n minus 1. If a student enters the room, they must sit in the seat that maximizes the distance to the closest person. If there are multiple such seats, they sit in the seat with the lowest number. And also, if no one is in the room, then the student sits at a seat number 0. Return a class that exposes two functions: seat, which would represent an return an input for the student static, and seat as the example, empty. So according to the rule, they are told that this is empty. So and again next, so the should sit at zero one. You have made 0 plus 9 by 2, 4 you can take, and then this he has left.
Hey,
And
Shashank,
here some chat is
I
there.
think we had many of us had some issue listening to your voice. Yeah, but
Oh,
it is
sure,
fine.
sure.
Yeah, I think it might be a Zoom problem. Now it is
Yeah.
okay,
Is
at
it
least
clear
for me.
now?
Yeah, it is clear.
Yeah, it's clear. You may want to start from return a class exam room that exposes two functions.
Example one, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, the
Yeah.
paragraph above. From there we can
Yeah,
start.
yeah, sure. Okay. So return a class, we have to, this is a class called exam room, which will have two functions, seat function and leave function. Seat function will tell that the seat at which particular student will sit, and leave function will am I audible, right?
Okay.
It's
It was
breaking, right?
breaking. It was breaking again.
Okay. Now?
Now it is good.
Okay. So that paragraph is clear, right? Return a class. A
So,
class is
yeah, so it's
yeah.
just a class, and then we have two functions, seat and the leave, right?
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So when you say seat, you have to seat one of the member actually walking into the class, and if you
Exactly.
want to leave, you are going to pass a parameter, and seat returns a parameter. Sorry, seat returns a seat
Yeah.
number.
Seat number. Mm.
Yeah. And the way you want to seat, do the seating arrangement is first will go to the 0th position, second will go to the maximum distance, every time it comes in. So you will try to keep the maximum distance between two persons sitting in the room, right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this example
Mm-hmm.
is clear, right? Or we can, I mean, like there are 10 seats in your room, exam room,
Mm-hmm.
and first students comes. So according to the rule, he'll sit at 0th position, and when second comes, he'll sit at a maximum position from 0. So total 10 positions are there. So he'll take the extreme one, that is 9. Now when the third student comes, he should sit at a distance optimal from both, like neither close to 0 nor close to 4. So he'll sit at like 0 plus 9 by 2, mid of that. And regarding leave, so you will sit at 4 year. Regarding leave, 1 2 3 4, we got seats done, right? For regarding leave, he'll leave the 4th position, so that will become vacant, and again he'll sit at the 5th position, the last seat number here. And the exam room dot seat and dot leave will be called at most 10 raised to power 4 times across all the test cases, and it's guaranteed to have a student currently sitting in the seat number P. Then only he'll leave. Otherwise, it's not like if it is empty, nobody will leave.
Some
Yeah.
can we
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
example where leave was explained, right? Like after CP got the concept of how the seating arrangement would be made. But what happens, like how while reading the input, like I understand exam room, then seat, first, second, third, fourth. So you reach to second index.
You're not
Then
really
none
audible.
because you are leading.
Yeah, it's not, you are not audible clearly actually.
Is it better now?
Yeah, now it looks good.
Yeah,
Sounds
better
good now. Mm.
So I'm just asking if you can revisit this input explanation.
Please actually
Pardon?
need to again repeat how you were actually.
Oh yeah, sure. See,
The lead
this
and
is a
I got the concept of like you are finding the index of the optimal distance, optimal maximum distance, but about the
hmm.
lead and how are you reading the second argument of the input array of 10 empty arrays and then 4, right?
Oh, so those,
Actually,
actually see
yeah.
the second array in the input is actually the parameters which you are passing. So we don't have to do anything there. This is just for a representation for our understanding. So when you have a leave, you will always have a some in value there.
Sitting there, then only you can leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Because okay, I get it. In question it
Yeah.
was written that when there is a leave, there is already a seat occupied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last
That's a lead code way of representing. Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, we need to uh, uh, put someone from the maximum distance what we have seen, what we could have from the last time.
Yeah, always try to make people sit at the maximum distance
So
from their neighbors.
the questions like this, we need some kind of, I think, some kind of data structure which can help us with that. This is something like a design class question, like you have two methods, seat and leave. And typically now we have to introduce some kind of data structure which can tell like what could be the maximum distance.
Hmm.
And what kind of data structure can help us here?
Heap or
Yes,
this.
it can help. Like if we take a max heap, which always tell like what's the max distance.
Yeah.
Based on the distance from points, we can find out like, okay, this is the, so basically we are optimizing our seat operation. Whenever somebody calls seat, we'll say, okay, this is a max distance for two guys, and then we can insert a position between them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to share code?
Sure. But
Yeah,
probably
sure.
let's do this like little bit of a white thing.
Yeah, sure.
So what is mentioned, like we have from like 0 to 10. So initially, if I do seat operation, where I could have put somebody.
At 0.
Yeah, so I would have put 0. So basically, this operation will say like I have a occupied seat 0,
Right.
and then if I have to put someone again, I will again put it here, right? So these two would become like a base operations. After that, everything would be like everything would be we have to construct a heap where I can put all these things. So basically, after that, if I have to put someone, I have to put in the middle. So which could be like 5. So in my heap, I can put like my starting is 0, end is 5, and again starting is 5, and end is like 10. And here also the distance is 5. Here also the distance is 5. I'm just taking some example. So if I put these things in the heap, so basically I have to split in 2 different intervals. So when I occupied seat 5, I have put in this way. So this is my distance, and this is my starting and end, starting and end. So basically, when I put something, I split into 2 different intervals. Does
How
that
do you keep track of your, let's say you are putting at 5, then how do you keep track of the 10 thing?
So basically, initially I have an interval of from 0 to 10, which was my base condition.
Okay.
So based on that, I found it.
Okay.
But we'll come to base condition later. But let's say somebody was already sitting here and here. So they told two positions are always filled. So we knew one position this is filled, this is filled. So just to make it simple. And now if I have to add someone, I will say where is the max distance? Right now they both are same. So I can pick 0 to 5, make someone sit here. This will go, and now I will add two different entries from 0 to let's say 2, which will be distance or let's say 0 to 2, which will be distance 2, and then 2 to 5, which would be again distance let's say 3. So now because this is a heap, this guy will come below that. So this, and next time if there is a preference, this will get more preference, this distance. But we already have this distance where I can start putting more people. So if I split this, next time this interval will come into picture, and followed by that. Basically every time I will split into 2. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
And let's say they ask me to remove seat number 2. So then that is a tricky part for the leave operation. Then I have to find where I have a end as 2 and where I have a start as 2. I have to merge them now. Basically, I will remove these 2 people from my heap, and then they will again become the same thing, which from how we have started. We have to again put that back as 0 to 5 as one interval with distance 5.
But
So
how do
basically,
you do-
so that will be a costly operation. Have to go through the entire heap and find it. So we can only,
you are
so,
heapifying on the difference of the positions, right?
yes.
Okay. So how would that be? Would this be possible to find the indices?
Yeah, heap is again a list. If you see Java or Python, it's a list. You can iterate. You can iterate and find things and then remove it. That will be costly operation, but I've seen these kind of design questions, there could be only one operation can be optimized. The other operation will be costly. Here the seat operation is optimized, but the leave operation would be costly.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how it works. If that is clear, I can then show the code. But the trick in this question is to split into 2 parts whenever you insert something.
Yeah, that's the only way to get the greatest distance from the neighbors. Like,
Yeah.
otherwise, if you go either less than mid or greater than mid, one side it will be larger, the other side it will be smaller.
Mhm.
What will be the worst case time complexity for this?
Worst case would be so seat operation would be log n, because you take the highest one and then remove it and then split into 2.
Every
And
time and
let's say there are n entries, then it would be a log n. But for the leave operation, I have to do search in entire heap. That would be order of n. Then have to remove them, and again it will heapify. But it would be I believe leave operation would be log n, and insert would be sorry, leave is order of n, and the seat operation is log n.
Right. So worst case will
Okay,
be
so-
ON, I guess.
So leave, maybe we can do a binary search, right?
It
yeah,
depends
correct.
how we have organized it. Leaf, how so heap is not the sorted one. Heap is never a sorted thing. It only gives you a max thing, but it is not sorted. So I don't know how the binary operation will.
But
No,
in
heap
case
is
P starts with
it's
a
a
sorted list.
sorted tree, right? Heap is a sorted tree.
No.
Not exactly.
Not sorted.
No, but if we pop the
Actually,
elements,
heap is sorted, but the priority queue is not sorted.
Oh, I don't know the difference.
Yeah, that's why
Even I don't.
priority is there. No, yeah.
I think priority queue is sorted. I mean, why not?
No, it works on sorted, but again, if two things are similar, then it goes to priority. Which one it should give the priority? Like 3 3 is there, then depending on the index, like 1 2 2 1 is there, so the a lower index will be given more priority, and then it will go for the 2.
No, so it's actually not sorted. So it just give you the idea that the parent, if it's a max or max priority queue, so it just give you that the parent will be the bigger than the child, but it does not tell you that whether the left child or where will be the child on the small, if the right child is bigger than the left child or not.
Right. But if I pop elements from the heap, I will always get a sorted sequence.
Right. That is
Yes,
true.
that's true.
But again, if you are putting it back, it will become n log n.
Yeah, that would heapify accordingly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the
Yeah.
so you in your example you took 0 to 5. The difference is 5, and the midpoint is 2, and then 5 to 10. So once you put say another candidate at 2, then the third like next candidate should come.
Between
Next it should be at 7, right? So you need to maintain both sides of like what is the difference, right?
yeah, so that's why we are putting two intervals, two things, not one. So we are then next time we'll put 5 to 7 and 7 to 10 both.
Okay, and then if I remove, then you have to recalculate those intervals, right?
So we have to merge them. That logic
Yeah.
is here.
Right.
But here, what I was trying to say, like the seek operation is optimized, but the leave operation is not. So what I've seen, only one operation can be optimized max with the help of a data structure. But there could be a better way of doing it.
Can you actually have, I mean, when you're actually seating for every index, can you have references to, I mean, if you create it as an objects, have references, store references for that interval set, that index?
Yes, that is also doable. And they're putting another data structure which will take a reference.
Yeah, I mean, then it might be some 2 login or something like that.
Yeah, so that, in that we would have extra data structure to store things that can also be argument to the interviewer, like I can use extra memory and avoid this kind of loop where I'm searching, you see.
Yeah.
But there will be again two other operations, two remove operations from the heap that could be again costly. Other thing to see is, like somebody mentioned, just keep on removing things. When you find your guy, don't put it back to the heap. But yes, this question seems little tricky to me. When I did that also, it took time for me to understand what is going on.
How long it took you to solve it? Did you time yourself?
No, I did like a while back, not yesterday. So I remember it took me substantial amount of time. And then I have to see the discussion to
Like substantial meaning like 2 hours or?
Yeah, I spent thinking of, then I thought, okay, get some signals from the discussion to formulate my thoughts.
Got it.
Because after spending quite enough time, I couldn't come closer to a solution. But yes, if we, I was thinking of using product EQ, but the only thing which I was not able to come up with how I will use it. The trick was like to split it into two parts. If that could have stuck me, and then I think I could have solved it myself. So basically, this part where we
Your
split it,
mid position.
yeah, mid position.
Mm,
If this could have stuck me, then I think I could have solved it, and that should be easy. If we have seen now this kind of a question, next time it could be easy intuition. Like I was trying to have one interval, but this approach has to split. So I was trying with just one insertion, but then when I found it has to be done with two, then it worked out for me.
yeah.
And then I was telling you the basic conditions here. X equal. So basically, we'll start with the in the heap. We'll put a -1 and n. This would be our starting thing. And then there would be some conditions when so now in my heap, if you see, there is only one element. It would be distance would be n, start would be -1, and end would be n. Then first time when this would be come at the top. So when x is -1, definitely I can only place at y.
Zero.
So shouldn't you be placing it at the 0th index? Hello.
1 second.
I think the first will be 0. Yeah, that is right.
Here. These are
You are doing it here.
Yeah. Oh, that is a distance calculation. Some defaults, yes. So when it is -1, return 0. Automatically use seat 0. When y is equal to n, just use n-1. That is the best distance. Then in the distance function, if I'm sending -1, the y should be just 0. So basically after that, I would have -1, 0. So it would be like 0, -1. So this will be my first guy, so this is gone. And what I've put next is 0, n. Sorry, I have to put the distance. So it would be n-1, It would be like n-2. Then 0 and n. So that's what will go into my heap. After, sorry?
One thing. So when you come into this function the first time, you are putting at the index 0, right? So should it be the middle index on line 75? Should -1 be 0 and 0 n?
Line 75.
So you have written 0, -1 and 0. Should this be?
So this is my distance. So I took the distance at the 0th position.
Okay.
So this is my starting, this is my end. And again here, this is my starting and this is my end.
Okay.
And next time, automatically, this guy will come at the top.
Right.
And where we'll check here, if y is equal to n, then we would be taking seat as n-1. So this will again get split into, there would be there would be one interval with n minus 1 to n, and there would be one interval from 0 to n minus 1. Correct?
Right.
Yeah. And here the distance would be, we already have some distance calculation. And
N minus 2.
n minus 2. And here it would be
0.
0. So next time this guy will come into, will get picked up between 0 to n minus 1. This from this time onwards, we'll start taking the mid.
Right.
So yeah, that was the trick. I don't think so. If I get that in the interview, I will able to come with all the perfect calculations. But if I get this idea of product take and splitting it, at least I can explain and get some code working.
Yeah.
Because if you see, there are these kind of conditions where you have to see, okay, when X is, then return this, when Y is this, return this guy. And we also have some condition. I couldn't make them more simplified.
Right. So just wanted to ask that if we know the question beforehand, so what should we do? Should we just openly tell the person or try to kind of fake for some time and then?
No, I won't say fake. I will say go with the flow.
Okay.
So the flow is first ask clarifying questions. You have seen the question. Doesn't mean like the interview exactly asks the same question. First, you have to make sure like what you have seen and what interview you're asking is same. If I have seen there could be issues where you think like you have seen this question, but it end up is a different question. Just make sure like what he or she has asked and you know are exactly same. There could be some little variation here and there. And after that, once the requirement is done, then start giving your solution like, hey, you think like a priority queue could be used here, and then and make it a discussion. That's it.
Right.
So you don't need to fake it. You just going with the flow. Once you write your code, do unit tests, testing, and everything. Fix your bugs yourself, and then I think you're pretty much done.
Right.
But sometimes even if you know the question and answer very well, and when you come up after 6 months, I don't think it's very easy to recollect everything.
No, it's not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
So the only
Yeah.
but it is still better than being a clue. You still know like, okay, priority queue could be used, and then you can do some improvisations there, doing coming up with things. But if I didn't know like if a priority queue could be used, I would be totally clueless like what to do.
What would be the brute force here?
Don't know. Brute force would be again keep on finding every time. It would be like, I think don't use priority queue, but still maintain your list and keep on. But again, the trick is have to split into 2 parts, and then keep on doing an iterate entire list, find the best one.
Yeah, actually, queue would be like if it's a C++, you use a vector, okay, for all the seeds. And then every time, for the first time, as you said, you push 0, okay, and the second time push n minus 1. But if you are in middle, you actually walk through the whole list, and every time, as you said, you find what is the maximum distance between them, and then you find what is the L and R, and then divide both of them by 2. So you will get the mid seed. And then you keep on doing it till you find the maximum distance. And then you insert that seed. So that also actually, because I did it that way, okay. But only when you are actually leaving, what you have to do is you have to erase in a vector a particular position, right? So that was, I don't know how good is that, but it works. It is accepted, but yeah, I don't know how good it will go. But as you said, priority queue, I also thought of it, because but the priority queue for me, if it is C++ implementation, I really couldn't make out how could I do for the leave position. The leave, the way you did, you have to actually look up for the heap, and I was not sure whether we could do that in a priority queue in C++.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
so
don't think we can iterate. We can just access the root.
Yeah, so that is what I was under the impression. But as you say like that, I will also look back, look in the solution and see if I can implement in C++, because this is more intuitive and it looks very good also, right?
Yeah. So yeah, so that's it. I think sometimes you just need some hint which you did in the past and come up with some. But I don't think doesn't look like a medium solution question to me.
Yeah.
Like a lot of like first it has a lot of narrative, what needs to be done, how, and then one of my test case was failing. Then I found this condition. So basically, if their distance is not same, then you take distance b, which is like from your to make it this thing. What I'll say, we are taking the higher distance. But if their distance is same, then we consider the position.
The position should be lower in that case, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that is what it says.
So yeah, so
there are a lot of things. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you, Asim. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can proceed to next. All what is that? All O1 data structure. Increment key is there, which would, insert key, inserts a new key with value 1. It's incremental, or increments an existing key by 1. Key is guaranteed to be a non-empty string. Then this is a decrement. If key's value is 1, remove it from data structure. Otherwise, decrement an existing key by 1. If it doesn't exist, this does nothing, and key is guaranteed to be a non-empty string. Get max key, you need to return one of the key with maximal value. If no such element exists, return an empty string. And min key is there, in which returns one of the keys with minimal value. If no such value exists, return an empty string. So we need to implement all these things in order of one-time complexity. So which kind of data structure should we use here?
So actually this problem is about implementing a class, right? So you are given a list of keys. You just have to increment them, their count value, right? And if you want to, if they come for decrement, you just decrement it by 1. Or if it is going to be 0, then you remove that value. And then whatever is the maximum, you need to find what is the maximum key. So you can find anyone if there are many keys with the same count. So you can return either of them, and the same applies for the minimum also, right? So there is no order there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. First, I thought of using heap. No. Yeah, heap. How can I get? Yeah. First, I thought of using max heap, but again, when I saw this order of 1, that because max heap we can get this maximum element in order of 1, right? But for getting the mean again, it will take order of n operations. Like min will be present at the leaf in the max heap. Min element should be present at the leaf of the what you say of the max heap. So I need to traverse to the leaf and then bring them to the top, and then only I can get that.
So are you saying that you were planning to use max heap and min heap both together, or only
No,
max
only
heap?
max heap. Yeah.
Yeah, but then in that case, the getting the minimum key would be more challenging.
Tough. Yeah. So can we use both together, max and min heap?
Yeah, but then the problem is like, how do you increment and how do you decrement? So because for increment and decrement, the keys might come in any order, right?
Yeah, that's an issue.
Because if you are keeping a min or max heap, you will have the priority based on the number of counts, correct?
Counts, yeah.
So I was not getting how could I increment and decrement? So
Yeah, I was thinking to use hash map where you have the key value pair and value would be your number, and then have auxiliary variables where we can have like running max and running min. But the problem is when I remove say a key, specific key, and if that key happens to be either min or max, then I'll have to like recalculate what is the current min and max, and that would be again linear scan of and
but you still have to do something for getting the min max.
Yeah, in
we
hash
keep
map, so how to get max? In order of one, you have to keep that in mind.
yeah. So when you insert, you keep those two variables which will hold min and max values, and if somebody is asking for get min or max, then we return that. But if there is a key deletion that happens, right, or decrement or deletion, that's when I think we'll have to recalculate min and max variables.
I think we might need to use like a map and the increasing heap and maximum heap. And for each element, we store the min and max at that point and sort the heap according to the one heap is for the maximum value and one is the minimum value. And when we access the item, we access it from the map. I was trying to use that to implement, but I couldn't come up with a complete solution. That's all.
Yeah, if you use heap, then your increment and decrement could be with any key, right? So then in that case, how will you do that if you're using min max heap?
But we can access that element through the map. We'll have the map pointed to that object.
So she's
like,
saying
more complex,
something
right?
like okay.
To make it the all over constant access, like over time complexity. Because somehow we need to have the value of min and max for each element updated.
But we cannot go with the heap as it says that all operations should be O of 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But O of it will be O of 1 when we access the get max key and min key, because we'll use the min heap and that will be the top element and that will be constant and peak.
But it will heapify again, so that will just taking just the value
Log
is
n.
1, but
Okay. So we
Again,
cannot
log
use
n
that
time it
then.
will take to heapify. Yeah. And secondly, in min heap, your max element will be present at the root, right?
Yes.
So again, how will you take max in order of one from min?
So
we'll have the map also for that access, right? I have map, min heap, and max heap. So map is for the direct access to get the element, and to get the min value and max value, we'll use the heap functionality.
That is a good approach, but the challenge happens, when you actually try to insert or delete something, you have to again modify your heaps, correct?
Yeah.
To modify, we can. I don't know if that counts as the it will count as a time taken by that, because when we are modifying, we are incrementing and decrementing on the map. So that will be constant in the background when it goes to the EP5.
Yeah, so EP5 will take log of n.
Oh, I think she's planning to implement the EP5, all those things, Oh. If you do that, then it is accessible. But actually, priority key doesn't give all that interface option, So that was something in C++.
Is it possible to create some buckets or something like that and do it? I mean, the max and min values of the how many times the key value, the value can go.
I didn't get, can you explain?
I was thinking like a bucket sort kind of thing. So all the keys with value 1 can be in one bucket and 2 can be in one bucket. Increment and decrement will be 2 nearby buckets itself.
So you are saying like we keep buckets, okay? So if I have a key A which comes first, I will put in bucket 1, correct?
Yeah.
So then again sometime later I get an increment A, so I will again create another bucket 2 and put that A. So I won't remove the 1 also, correct?
For key, you need to have a hash map as well. To which bucket it is currently in.
That's fine. Yeah, I have a map also fine. But for the bucket, so do you want me to keep 2 buckets for A because one is 1 and other is 2 because I incremented to 2, or you just want 1 bucket to move to 2 and just remove the bucket, A key in bucket number 1.
So if there's an increment, you actually try to find the bucket which it is in, and you actually transition it to the next bucket.
So you want to move it? Okay.
Yeah, move it.
Yeah, I think that is a good one to do, I would say.
But max and min, it will be it can be like range or that.
So in this case, instead of using a map to keep a mapping between the key and the bucket where it is, why don't you use a list and keep that sorted, right? So if you have a list that's sorted, so you can always know that the first one is max minimum and the last one is the max.
True, but how will you, if you have to
yeah, there are challenges. It is not a straightforward solution. But actually I have a very simple solution, and it worked to some extent. What I did was, of course, I went through the discussion session and then I found out. But the way someone did is they used an unordered map, like what you were saying, have a map of a key and the count. For increment, you just keep on incrementing, and for decrement, you keep on decrement. But when you are actually going to find a max or min, you just iterate through that every time. That was the most simplest one. And it got accepted. So first of all, I didn't bother about what the time complexity was going to be, because I just wanted the solution to run and I could understand how things will work. So the simplest way, it got accepted, and it gave me a very decent amount of time also, run time in LeetCode. But as you say, it's not a straightforward solution. So you need to implement the LRU way, use a list, something like that. So there are more things to work on.
I saw they have implemented some doubly linked list also places.
Right. Yeah.
So Santosh, though your solution has been accepted by LeetCode, but that's not the correct solution. If you go with that last line, the challenge is we have to implement it O of 1. So from interview point of view, that's not the correct answer, right?
So O of 1 is for what?
For all the operation.
Operations, yeah.
That is the challenge for this question.
Mm-hmm.
But then how lead could accept it?
Yeah, so okay, no, yeah, that is fine. He's just saying that challenge. It might not be for the accepted whatever they call that criteria. So it might be a challenge, you know, maybe like a follow-up something. Okay. But if you look at the way, okay, so if you want to do it the other way, okay, I can show you the other way also I did using a list, the LRU way. Okay, because that is almost O of 1. But if you look at the time complexity, runtime complexity in the lead code itself, they give me the first solution a better one than the next one. And you can see the whatever they have done it means whatever the implementation, it looks like O of 1. But the time difference is slightly, it's more. It's like, you know, for the first solution, I'm getting something like 64 milliseconds. And for the one which is with O of 1 or some sort of like it, I'm getting 108 milliseconds. Yeah, maybe C++ has more things to do in its STL. So that is the case. But if you implement in some other language, it might be much efficient.
It could be possible that we don't know what is their input. So,
right.
So that big off and actually give the advantage when you have a really huge input. If you have a small input, so it might be possible that the O of 1 solution doing some a more constant type of operation.
Right. I can quickly show you and just explain how this thing is, you know. I know it's I also was not satisfied with the first solution. Therefore, I actually started looking for the next one. And that is the reason things became more interesting to me. Yeah, okay, this is the one, right? Not the exam one. Oh, sorry, actually, this guy. Just please bear with me.
Someone actually posted this one today itself for Facebook phone screen.
Okay.
Oh, this question.
Yeah, phone.
Okay, so I use this way. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just asking, like on a phone interview, it was this question.
Okay.
I think Uday was mentioning something like,
The phone interview, you have to implement the whole thing, or it's generally like a discussion, or it's some editor based?
Phone interview, they will actually have something to write, bro. So you'll have to actually work with them, interactive thing.
Google Docs or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So the very easy way, what I did was the first thing, you have an unordered map. Okay. Nothing simple. You just come to increment, you increment it. For decrement also, you do the same operation. Okay. This is O of 1. Okay. But then you come here and the max heap. Okay. Your max key type. You just iterate and find and then return that. Okay. The same thing you do for main heap. So if you look at the submissions timing, they are like 64.
Yeah, that is fine, but as
I know. Yeah, you'll have that question. But I'll just explain you the other one also. The second solution, what I implemented when I actually found this is not a good one. So of course, this was also again going through the discussion, and actually going through the discussion and understanding the solution was also taking a long time. So I actually understood this solution. So I used this one. I found it slightly better, and it looked to me as an O of 1. Okay. So here I'm using a list. Okay.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. So this is a list. I'm sorry.
Go on.
Okay. So in the list I have int, which is the count, as I think Uday was talking about, right? You have buckets, and then you have an ordered set of whatever the keys are there in this bucket. Okay. And so I need to maintain this list in a sorted manner. So I can always pick up the first one as the min and the last one of this list as the max. So that O of 1 for min max is taken care of. So I have this unordered map here.
But if you're keeping this ordered set, it will have the time, some log and time complexity, right?
I'll explain you the way they have done it. So yeah. So therefore, I also thought about that, but it is not the way when you are inserting, because initially you don't have anything in the list, right? So when you start inserting, you are inserted at the right position. Okay, so there is something
to
involved.
insert at the right position, again we have to go through.
Right. So maybe the STL things might take care of it. So, so that is what I'm assuming. Okay. Then this is the unordered map here. I have a key and then this part. Okay, this is the iterator part. Actually, it is the same way we actually implement for the LRU.
Yep.
Okay. So you have the iterator here, and then you can store that. I think someone was talking in the last session, right? Bhavish was saying if you can use a priority queue, indexed priority queue, right?
Yeah.
So that is what I was thinking. Like whenever for the previous question when we were talking about the priority queue and how to access something, so indexed
That is what
priority
I meant. Like when we use the heap, we use the map to index to that element. So
yeah,
that
I don't know how to do that in C++. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So this is the way they do it. And actually, yeah, I think Shweta mentioned about that, insert part, right? So yeah, it might be, some operations involved in this one.
No, so this is a list, so that's a constant time operation.
No, when you are inserting, actually you're doing, though from certain position, that is fine. But when you go in detail, when you find the next iterators and all that, so, like this one, it will still take some time because it is iterating, right? It is sequential operation. Yeah. So that might be a problem here.
So what is that next is?
So when you have to increment a key, first you need to find out where that key is, correct? So
right.
when you have a key, when you find that iterator position, so you need to actually increment it. So you have to put in the next bucket. So for that, you need to actually push to find the next iterator. And so if you are able to find that next iterator is good, if you are not, then you have to insert, create another bucket, and then you have to insert this key. Okay. And then you erase the previous one because we want to move. You don't want to keep a copy of the previous one. So that is this operation. But here now actually it makes more sense when you are inserting something. Okay. So this will involve some time, and therefore this makes more sense. Yeah.
This is a constant time operation. So here so next is just actually you are moving to the next node. Only next node in that list. That's it.
We are iterating to find the right position, right? So it will not be the constant time. We have to compare something to see the where it.
No, here
it's just moving to the next node.
One.
And if next node is not just a one increment, then it's actually creating a new node and inserting there.
Yeah. So next is only single O of an operation.
Yeah. So
insert will be a big one.
Right? No, insert will not be a big one because this is a doubly linked list.
Okay. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. So this should be okay. Correct. But then why the time complexity? Is it because of the erase part?
Not erase part. I mean, I don't know exactly their internal how they actually measure all these times. So sometimes I notice that there is a single line of a statement and it takes a lot of time comparing to other Java submission. So that's I'm not sure.
Yeah. Actually, this is O of 1. Yeah. You're right. Sorry, Praveen. Yeah, you're right.
But I think this is the solution expected for this problem, as this problem is marked as hard. The first solution, what you showed that is just for if this problem is marked just easy. So first solution is okay. But as this problem is marked as hard, so the solution you have is the second solution. This is what they are expecting.
Yeah, but the time complexity is more.
You could actually
please share this on the Slack. I'll try to do it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry, Uday was asking something, right?
No, I was just saying that if you could arrive at the first one, the bucket approach, you could you could somehow end up at this one. The keys, non-existing keys, you could try to remove it actually and end up at this approach. It's a doubly linked list itself, right?
It's a bit hard,
No, coming to this one actually was more, it is not so straightforward for me.
Yeah.
because this looked very easy. Yeah, that's fine. But I was sure that this is not going to be the solution. But I thought at least let me run and see if I get some TLE or something like that. But fortunately, it accepted. And then I went for this one, but this was more complex.
Santosh,
This
could
is
you
what we
please
did for
explain?
LRU also, correct?
Yes.
Santosh, could you please explain the function at line 58? I think you just you have not explained. You just people already know and they started contributing. I'm not able to follow.
So this 58, you know, actually what you are trying to do, you are trying to increment the count of a key, correct? So I have this map first. First what I do is first I look for the key. Okay. So if I don't find the key, then I actually insert that. Correct. So when I insert, it means that my current key will be of count 1, correct? So for that, actually, I initialize it to 0 count value. The key will be at 0 count. So I just insert in that map. I don't do anything here. But if it is already there, I won't go in this one because I already have the key. Okay. So I just take the, find the iterator.
I have one question there. Line number 60, when you are inserting in the list, does it return a iterator, list iterator?
Yes.
I think it returns a list iterator.
Yeah.
Okay, you are returning, give me a second. So the key was not found in the map. What is the relation between the map and the list is not clear to me.
Okay, okay. See, here it is, you know. So least is actually the least. Okay, so it has a pair and this is my count.
Okay.
Okay, and this is the keys what I'm going to put in an unordered set.
Okay.
So this will be a bucket. Okay, and then I'm going to put all the keys for that particular bucket.
Okay.
And my map is mapping of a key to the particular this least entry. This is an iterator.
Give me a second. What you are doing is a list of a pair of count to the iterator.
Yeah, because I want to do this operation in O of 1, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the data structure is kind of a little convoluted, so I'm just taking time.
No, that's fine. It took a long time for me to understand because this is what we did for LRU. Because LRU also you have to do an operation of O of 1. So you need to find some operation. So you actually are storing the pointer, you know, for this location where you are putting it.
Correct, correct.
Yeah. So that is very important, and therefore you get most of the operations O of 1. But Praveen, here also, you know, when you are putting in an unordered set, if you have huge number of keys, then it will be iterating through each and every one, right?
No, that unordered set, that is.
Oh yeah, it is just finding in one of O of 1. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah, it is right. So yeah.
But the set finding is log n, right? Set is usually
unordered set is O of 1.
Yeah, so C++ set is yes log of n, but unordered set is O of 1.
Yeah, ordered set and unordered set. Ordered set is O of 1.
So unordered set basically uses the hashing technique to get O of 1.
Right.
Yes.
Because there is no other way. If no hashing is involved, it cannot be order of 1.
Yes, these unordered set are actually based on hash.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
If it is ordered set, it will be sorted. So yeah. So here actually you find that iterator. Okay. You just store this value because you get that in O of 1. And then you go and find the next iterator because you want to push this in the next bucket, correct? So therefore you have this next iterator here. But when you are actually finding this next iterator, you don't find it because you go to the end of the list. It means that you don't find it. Or if you see that the current iterator's value, it doesn't have the next iterator bucket, then you have to create the next iterator bucket. And therefore we are doing this operation over here. So you are creating a next iterator in the list first, okay, with this value. And then you are inserting here the key, okay, and then you are actually updating your map also. And then when you have done this, you actually have to erase the key in the previous bucket. And that is what this whole operation is.
really bit tough to digest. Like,
Yeah, it is. It took a while, but actually, when I was doing this LRU, at that time I came to know a lot of things. So slightly it was easier to understand, but it's not so. It's not a very quick thing. It's not a very intuitive also. And in an interview, okay, if I have an interview tomorrow and I have to explain that, then it's good. But if after 6 months, if I have, then I don't think so. I'll be able to come up with the solution.
So in that line number 60, what is that zero thing?
Well, actually, I'm just putting some value 0 because I'm going to increment it. I know, right? So therefore, I'm just putting some value there. Then this is just. I could have put 1 also. Should not be a problem.
Where is the increment happening? At which line?
66.
Actually, here is the thing. Whole thing. What happens? So you create a new bucket with the new value. And because if you have a next iterator, you don't have to increment, correct? If you find a next iterator, which is not end or all these things, then it means you have a next bucket. So you just have to insert. But if you don't have that, then you have to create this one.
So what is this iterator? Like, I mean, what first time I'm hearing this word iterator. Going through each element of what?
Iterator is a pointer.
It's a pointer.
In C++ STL, basically that is where they say, yeah, it is kind of a pointer. We can say that.
It is a pointer to each and every element in that data structure.
Okay.
In Java, I mean, you cannot store iterator to some elements, to the corresponding elements or something. So you can actually remove, if it is a doubly linked list or something like that, if you have implemented it should have been.
But they should have some way to find out, right? Okay, I was not knowing that. Okay. Okay. So the decrement is also similar thing. It is almost the same thing what we are doing. Again, you are finding it and then you're trying to find the previous in this case. There it was the next one. But then there are a few more things to take care of. In this case, you have to go and look for if the previous bucket is existing or not, and then push it. But only look for this one if it is not, if it is greater than first. If it is only one bucket, then actually don't have to do whole thing, and then you again erase it. The similar thing. So there are a lot of intense STL operations, and that might be also one of the reasons getting this time. But yeah, I just wanted to show you, the simpler one also is giving me a good time complexity in LeetCode. But yeah, as Praveen said, yeah, we have to go this way as what the problem says. Maybe there is some better thing to, sorry?
It's because of the iterators. So iterators are basically pointers, right? So accessing pointers is takes a lot more time than accessing contiguous memory blocks. It's because of spatial locality caching. So that is
the STL pointers are not located adjacent to each other. The STL in STL containers, not all the items are located next to each other. So it is not like an array pointer.
Yeah.
What they do is some of the iterators, basically that is kind of abstraction layer. Suppose they support increment plus plus. If the underlying data structure is a linked list, then that plus plus basically invokes a function which does the dot next traversal for you.
Operator overloading.
That's what I'm saying. So it is because of that only that the earlier operation when Santosh was directly linearly iterating over the map, it is coming out to be in 60 seconds, and this when we are using a bucket sort of thing and all of the operations are O1, it's still coming out to be taking a lot more time than 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Nice one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So this was one thing. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, of course, Shashank.
Santosh, please.